host room. the largest union talk radio program in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is finally back from his weeks-long absence. Adam Keller is in the studio. If you've got anything to add, we've got the phone line open. We don't have any guests in the first half of the program, so we would love to hear from you. That phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. And if you don't want to call in, but you want to leave us a message, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook and participate in the chat. Adam, it is great to have you back after you've been living it up, going to the beach, going to Cancun, having this huge long time off, not doing nothing. So
yeah, I guess the George Soros money finally hit, and I've just been living it up. But no, it's been great. Had some good organizing experiences over the last couple weeks. Last weekend we did the Fight Back School with Labor Notes in Tuscaloosa. Weekend before that, I went to the Eugene V. Debs Foundation Awards. Got to see that and check out the home of Eugene V. Debs, one of my all-time heroes. Heard quite a few labor leaders and political leaders, including Senator Sanders, including Sarah Nelson, who I know you had on this show last weekend. And, of course, she was in Alabama a couple of weeks ago as well. So it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks of just labor politicking and organizing for sure.
There you go. Yeah, well, Zoran Mamdani actually quoted Eugene Debs, the first line of his victory speech. That was pretty cool to see. Adam, I don't know if you can try to figure out what's going on with your camera there.
Sure.
But I will. I'll talk about this segment that I had lined up here. Katie Britt, our U.S. Senator in the state of Alabama, was in D.C. last week speaking with Goldman Sachs. Talking to Goldman Sachs while the government is shut down, while many of her constituents are furloughed or laid off because of the government shutdown, while the ones that are not furloughed or laid off, the federal workers, are working and not getting a paycheck. She's talking to Goldman Sachs, and now she would say it's at their small business summit, which is, so much better. But, I have to imagine that the quote-unquote small business owners that work at Goldman Sachs or that are going to Goldman Sachs conventions are not exactly, the sort of mom-and-pop local restaurateurs. And so it is, crazy to see that kind of thing. As as we're in the middle of a government shutdown, it is. Why is she doing that instead of trying to negotiate for a deal that protects Alabamians' health care and that puts federal workers back to work? Every time that I talk about this, every time I talk about the government shutdown, I like to remind people what is at stake. And that is these ACA subsidies, which have made healthcare somewhat affordable for so many people. In Alabama, there are some 500,000 Alabamians enrolled in marketplace coverage as of May 2025. And about 98% of those enrollees receive the premium tax credits to help afford their monthly premiums. The average marketplace premium in Alabama will increase by 93%. 93%, talking about doubling the average marketplace premium in Alabama for almost 500,000 Alabamians, right? And that's the average. That means half of everybody is going to see their healthcare increase more than that. And so what is that going to do? That is going to mean that a lot of Alabamians are going to choose not to take health insurance. 130,000 Alabamians could lose health insurance if the enhanced subsidies expire. And then those Alabamians, the ones that decide not to pay for their health insurance, they're obviously going to be disproportionately more likely to be healthier and less likely to actually need health care. And so the people that are left in the marketplace are going to be those that need health care even more, right? And so that is going to increase everybody's health care prices even more. This loss of health coverage would cost Alabama $1.14 billion in economic activity and 10,000 jobs just in 2026. And so that is what the Republicans are fighting for in the Senate and in the House, is to make sure that that happens, to make sure that that result obtains, that 500,000 Alabamians see increased health insurance prices immediately, and that 10,000 Alabamians lose their jobs in 2026. And so while all of this is happening, she's speaking at this big Goldman Sachs convention, and not talking to Alabamians, and not negotiating with her Senate colleagues. She's also had the time to make the rounds on Fox News and Newsmax and all of these sorts of places. I mean, if you go to her Twitter profile, it is astounding how many hits she has been making over the last week. I mean, we've got one here on MSNBC. We've got another on CNBC, the business thing. We've got one on Newsmax. We've got, I mean, it's just, she's on Sirius XM, going on a bunch of radio tours. She is, I think she was at the Turning Point USA event. You know, it's like, it seems like, you know, seems like there are some other things that you could be doing. Seems like there are some other things that you could be doing, but I don't know. And even though she was, you know, she was making all this time for fancy news networks and talking to Goldman Sachs in Washington, D.C., she did make time for some Alabamians, or she will be making time for some Alabamians. On Monday, November the 10th, she is going to be giving a Washington brief to the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce, the Council of Bosses in Montgomery. So, you know, again, making sure that the bosses are informed, making sure she maintains relationships with the bosses and the businesses, not so much for working people that are going to see their healthcare premiums skyrocket. Very frustrating to see that sort of thing. So I don't know. What do y'all think about her? What do y'all think about her speaking to Goldman Sachs, to the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce and stuff like that? 844-899-TVLR is the phone number if you'd like to give us your thoughts on that. 844-899-8857. Were we able to get the camera situation figured out?
No camera on me today. So even though I'm back in the studio, you cannot see me. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll keep on trucking. But yeah, I wonder if Senator Britt's going to do any town halls or, you know, public forums or any other engagements with the community where regular folks could come and hear it and not have to pay large prices for tickets, not have to be an owner of something important. Just, you know, regular folks. I wonder. I don't know. Haven't seen it on her calendar, but, you know, I don't know. Just asking questions.
Does not seem to be the case. Well, I think that we can go to a screen. Well, let's go to a standby screen, and maybe we'll try to figure out if we can get this camera working for a second. So let's go to the standby scene for just a second. We'll be right back. Are we still muted? Okay, sorry guys. I'm not sure. We're having a lot of technical difficulties this morning. Hopefully you're hearing us now. Let us know in the YouTube chat.
Let's try this again. Hopefully you guys can
Video
hear me.
is good though. No, still not hearing us. Good now. Okay, Brandon says good now. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so Adam and I read a lot of news, and the Alabama Education Association has been in the news a lot the last 2 weeks, the last week or so. And Adam and Adam has a history with the AEA. So Adam, can you talk to us about what the AEA's been in the news for the last week or two?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the AEA has been having conversations with the Alabama Republican Party's chair, John Wall. And now John Wall has had a grudge against AEA really throughout his political career. He has really advocated for members of the Republican Party in Alabama to not engage with AEA, to not accept their money. That hasn't stopped AEA from giving them money. They've been given a lot of money to a lot of Republican candidates over recent years. But John Wall met with AEA representatives recently to talk about homeschooling and what he calls parental rights. And he said it was a pretty productive meeting. He claims that AEA gave him some assurances that they're not going to try to further regulate homeschooling. And something that John Wall emphasized is that the Alabama Republican Party strongly supports parental rights and the homeschooling community. And, he kind of frames it throughout these conversations he has, in the news this day, which was the 26th and the 27th. Both Alabama Political Reporter and ABC 3340 covered this. But throughout, his news appearances over the last couple of weeks, he's really talking about competition. And that parents deserve to have the competition of homeschooling and private schools. And so, it's interesting to see that these conversations are happening. And Wall then gets, kind of called out in right-wing media, the 1819 News outlet, which, is a very interesting organization. It's worth checking out just every now and then to see what they're saying. And they seem to have, an obsession with AEA. So they started talking about it a couple of days later. Wall defended his outreach to AEA. He quoted Reagan saying, "Trust but verify," all that good stuff. I
want to jump in here on just a second. Not the competition stuff. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that's kind of a silly thing. But the idea that parents should be able to withdraw their children from the public education system with zero oversight does not strike me as a small c conservative position. That strikes me as something else entirely. The idea that you have an individual right to not educate, to refuse your child education is what it amounts to in so many of these homeschool situations, which is something that people are concerned about. Obviously, right. The AEA is concerned about that because they have they're an organization of teachers that have a general interest in public education. But I do just want to foot stomp a little bit the idea that John Wall is pushing for a system where parents can refuse to allow their child to receive an education and have no oversight in how they administer whatever they end up calling education in their homeschool environments. I mean, that is an insane anti-child, anti-society sort of position, which is, I'm not even saying what the regulations should be or what the oversight should look like. I'm saying that that's crazy that a parent could just pull their child out of the school system and not give them an education. That's insane.
Right. Well, John Wall is a huge proponent of religious education. And his idea of religious education is probably, not going to track with a lot of people's. And, something he told 1819 News is that they're in a battle for control of the hearts and the souls and the minds of our children. Right. And in this, he was talking about how AEA should separate from the NEA, the National Education Association, which is technically the largest teacher union in the country. And AEA is an affiliate of NEA. And, Wall says that, quote, the vast majority of Alabama teachers are Republicans. But that's probably the profession that we get the most calls from, are teachers who are seeing stuff in their curriculum that they're shocked about. Now, I don't know. I've been out of the classroom since 2015. Perhaps the curriculum has changed significantly since then. But I'm really curious about some of these things that are just shocking the Republican teachers. I'm sure it's really shocking stuff like diversity and fairness and respect. I don't know. But that's interesting. And, Wall is kind of leaning into this culture war stuff. And it's clear they're trying to divide educators along political lines, along cultural and religious lines. And, so AEA went around doing some media in response. And you have talked a little bit about this before. There's a longtime Republican operative who is now doing work for AEA, right?
Yes. So Brad Presnall is, as you said, a longtime Republican political consultant, and over the last year or maybe two, he has been doing consulting work for the AEA, which includes, part of that work includes his weekly segment on the Dale Jackson Show, where, I think he speaks more generally as a Republican consultant, but when education issues comes up, he is speaking as a representative of the AEA.
Right. And, so he made some rounds on conservative radio. He claims that they back some conservative education issues. He compared the AEA ALGOP relationship to the relationship of Trump and Kim Jong-un, which is just funny, honestly. He then had to go around and apologize for that, and he literally bent the knee to 1819 News. He let's see. I've got to pull up this headline because it was just too funny. Where is this? Let's see. Journalism is alive and well, and it's holding me accountable, Brad Presnell says. Thanks to the revival of Alabama journalism coming via 1819 News, I find myself called out for rude and less than professional commentary. Well, imagine that. So apparently, 1819 News is doing quality journalism. Mr. Presnell apologized. The spokesman for AEA, he apologized for daring to say that 1819 News had AEA derangement syndrome. I guess that was his inflammatory metaphor that he was apologizing for. And I'm sure, the idea that they had 7 articles in like a week span, probably not evidence of that, I'm sure. But, so he has this whole editorial in 1819 just begging for forgiveness, really, and singing the praises of 1819 News. That's really interesting. There's back and forth in Yellowhammer News as well as 1819 News over like a week or two span where John Wall's frequently, being quoted. AEA is being attacked.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the thing, it's like, it came out, or John Wall put out a press release that he had a cordial meeting with the AEA, and then at the beginning of it, it's these right-wing news outlets, castigating him for daring to talk to the representative of Alabama's teachers, which is really, it is just a fact of the matter that these outlets have AEA derangement syndrome. The idea that, AEA is, for the last, I don't know, what would you say? 10 years has been a conservative institution in the state of Alabama. For what people would say is better and worse, it's been a conservative institution. And fundamentally, a lot like with all of these power struggles with unions and stuff like this is about not wanting to cede power and not wanting the representatives of Alabama's teachers to have any say in education policy. That's fundamentally what's going on here. And so it starts with John Wall kind of, saying, I've had a cordial meeting. Then the outlets are really upset at him about that. He at first tries to defend it, and then he comes back and he's like, oh no, the AEA is really, really bad. They would slit our throat if they had the opportunity to, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
this is not a love affair.
This is not a love affair. He does not believe them. They have not earned my trust.
Which, if I was the AEA donating at this point millions of dollars per election cycle to Republicans, and I can't even get the chair of the Republican Party in Alabama to not treat us like enemy number one, I would start to question my investment at that point.
Yeah, and that's the bigger question, right? Like, if you're a rank and file teacher or education employee in the state, I think it's fair to question how this approach is working out, because it's clear that the more AEA cozies up to the Republicans and the right-wing media machine, the more it doesn't work, right? They're never going to win their influence. They're never going to buy their influence, however much they keep trying. So they can hire right-wing operatives. They can give piles and piles of money to Republican candidates. But it's not going to end that grudge that so many right-wing interests have against them for the very reasons you mentioned. And I'm just curious how it's going to play out with rank-and-file teachers. John Wall says a vast majority of teachers are Republicans. I don't find that to be true. I don't know that it's, significantly different from the population of Alabama, but one thing I do know is true, that if you go to an AEA conference or an event, the members of AEA who are most engaged, who are most attending events and conferences and delegate assemblies, are disproportionately Black. There are a lot of Black educators involved with AEA. And so, I'm wondering, how does this play out with them, right? Knowing that their organization is cozying up to the right wing, and it's not even really working all that great. We just had the biggest expansion of school choice passed last year, the Choose Act, which, by the way, they testified as neutral on. Right, so they've been playing footsie with the Republicans for all these years, giving them big checks, playing these games, and here they are, still getting trashed in those media outlets, and still treated as enemy number one, as you said. So, I don't know how it ends. I'd be curious to know if AEA would consider cutting ties with NEA to try to win over more conservative favor. I don't know.
We'll see. We got a couple of callers on the line, so we'll take those on the other side of this break. If you want to get in line, that phone number is 844-899 TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. We'll take those calls on the other side of this break. Interested in your thoughts about this AEA stuff and about, Katie Britt speaking to Goldman Sachs at a Goldman Sachs convention instead of, trying to bring an end to the government shutdown. 844-899-8857. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. We will be right back.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more.
With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger food drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller. Today we just spent a little while talking about Alabama's teachers union and Katie Britt. We're going to be talking soon about a new report detailing prison labor in Hyundai's supply chain. We're also going to be talking about what Adam's been up to the last few weeks. All that and more on today's program. We're going to be getting to a couple of calls here in just a second as well. If you want to get in line, that phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave a voicemail throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm, but we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you find your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners, so if you want to become a sustainable long-standing donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. And finally, if you are a member of a union, then think about getting your local or national union to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that at tvlr.fm/contact.
Hey y'all, let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We want to welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, Means TV, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. And as most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class here in the American South. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we can't do it without you. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener. We appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Absolutely. And I did get a comment on the first stream that we did on Facebook that that we had to end because of our camera issues from Brother Joe Marshall. And this is just terrible, terrible news. My friend and union brother, Mel Sutton, passed away yesterday.
Oh, no.
Rest in peace. Mel Sutton is a good brother, retiree of the United Steelworkers out of International Paper. And, that is really, really, really terrible news.
It's a big loss for the movement.
It is.
Mel has always been very good to us, whether it's in our role here at the Valley Labor Report or with the North Alabama Area Labor Council. He's just been one of those true diehard unionists who you could always count on to show up for something, to chip in a few bucks in the hat when the hat's passed around. He's just that kind of guy, So appreciate Joe letting us know, and appreciate Joe for his long friendship and taking care of him and working together. They've been a dynamic duo. So really appreciate both those guys.
And Joe, if you give me a call once you know the funeral arrangements, I'd appreciate that, and I can send that on to the Labor Council's website through the Labor Council's email list if that's something that you think his family would be okay with. But man, that's terrible news. I didn't realize he was that bad. We got a couple of callers on the line. Let's get to those. Caller from a 617 area code. 617 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is John Murphy. I'm a city letter carrier out of Naples, Florida.
Hey, John.
John from Florida. What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm just calling to plug the reform movement, Build a Fighting NELC. Recently, Brian Renfro, the NELC president, Brian Renfro was on the Next Generation Carriers podcast, and he went on record on telling members to not expect much from the next round of contract negotiations. So Build a Fighting NELC is the reform movement trying to put the fight back into the NELC. So Build a Fighting NELC is currently asking all city carriers to go onto their website, fightingnelc.com/survey, to update us on what their top 3 demands are. We need to listen and hear from the rank and file members, because the establishment always goes, "Oh, bring your contract demands in a resolution to the convention." It's 2025. The rank and file could have a better say. You could survey your membership directly and go from there. So if there's any city carriers listening, please fill it out. Take the 2 minutes to fill it out and let us hear your voice, because we can't continue down this defeatist attitude of wait and see and just be happy with 1%. When the Wall Street is on a recession, we go, "Oh, it's not a good time." Now Wall Street's making record profits. "Oh, it's not a good time." When the Democrats are in the White House, "Oh, it's not a good time." When the Republicans are in the White House, "Oh, it's not a good time." According to Suits and Ties, it's never a good time. So the rank and file is the labor union. and the rank and file need to unite. So I'm just calling in solidarity to all the rank and file members who have already done it. We just broke 1,000. Our goal is to get to 2,000 NALC members to fill out the survey before November 21st, which is the NALC wrap session in Cleveland, Ohio. And Build a Fighting NALC wants to bring the contract survey results there and continue to grow the survey. Hopefully we can get every city carrier to fill out the survey. So I just want to plug that in solidarity with all the city carriers. So,
yeah, John, is that a quote, "Don't expect much" from the next negotiations?
It's not a direct quote, but it's around the same vibe of don't expect much because of the current conditions that we're looking at.
What did he say exactly? Do you remember? You may not remember.
Don't get me off the record, but it's like because Rick Steiner came in, or Scott Steiner, one of those Steiners, from FedEx. He's the new postmaster general. We have the Trump attacks on the federal workforce. The economy's kind of unstable. It's like, yeah. So there's a lot of demands that are non-economic, right? Because the post office is crying poor. But like, one of the demands that we're seeing is once you get hired as a city carrier, your first day you should be provided a uniform. So right now you come in as a city carrier, you don't get a uniform until day 100. So you could be there on Sunday at 9 o'clock at night delivering packages to someone's door, and someone might accidentally think you're robbing them.
Oh, wow,
so
yeah.
We need for the rank and file, like I said, like from if you're a CCA, which is a brand new carriers, to even the senior carriers that are almost retired, give us your thoughts on what we should be bargaining for. Because if we keep going down this road of the usual demands, we're never going to be bold. And I was talking the other day, look at the Fight for 15 when that came out in 2014. That was a very bold demand. Like even union members across the country in all industries were like, wow, we're going to pay them $15 an hour. The federal minimum wage is only $7 an hour. And it's like, we need to get back to being bold, or else we're going to keep seeing declines. So,
right.
Yeah.
What's that link again?
Fighting, NALC.com/survey.
fightingnalc.com/survey. If you are a letter carrier listening now, go ahead and fill that out and share it around. Appreciate the call, John.
All right. Thank you.
We got another caller on the line. If you want to get where he was, that phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. Would love to hear from folks about what you're thinking about anything, or if you'd like to ask us a question, give us a call, 844-899-8857. Our next caller is from a 256 area code. Let's bring them on the line. 256 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Well, it's Dwayne from Morgan County. Glad to have you back, Adam. Hello, Jacob. Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
I wanted
Dwayne.
to talk about the AEA I wanted to talk about the AEA situation from a different point of view that you may not have thought of, guys.
Sure.
One thing that they kind of asked or wanted something done about was the fact that children will no longer be in the public education system because of the CHOOSE Act and because of immigration taking them from the schools. Now, where normally we have a really stern truancy, accountability for parents and everyone, it is now don't look, don't ask, it doesn't matter, don't have to show if they're going to school that day or where they are. This puts children in danger. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
Are you getting what I'm saying? And you remember months ago I said the Protestant churches have not been held to the accountability of the Catholic churches when it comes to children's sexual abuse. Have you got me again?
Yeah.
Now, this leaves open. Parents could just send their children to whoever it may be, and we don't know that the child is there. Am I right or wrong?
No, that's right.
Okay. Now, when I got to looking, this is going to amaze you guys, and I'll put this on my Alabama corruptions. I'll give you all this by tomorrow, okay? When I look up and ask the question about what happened at Dessler High School, which now has happened again with another video, I asked the question, were there any institutional cover-ups within a 3-mile area of this high school? And you will not believe there are 4 churches with over 30 children over a 10-year period where it was covered up that child sexual abuse was taking place as low as the age of 2, that some of them would be going to death floor right now. And when I look up the because guys, the area of that school covers Tuscumbia, Sheffield, and Muscle Shoals. 3 different police departments come to the 3 different churches. Have you got me? Now, I will put down the names and I will put down the details, and this means that cover-ups can occur and are occurring on a continuingly throughout a decade means of occurrences there, guys. This is a big thing. And when I brought attention to 1819 News and said, you covered the pastor that was a mayor, you should be looking into this continued cover-ups. I got nothing, guys. But it really is everything. As you well know, I wouldn't be saying it here if it wasn't. So the AEA or anyone that can do things that will make sure that our children are where they say that they are, and they're not just missing to be wherever they might be, is the correct and right thing to do.
Right.
And to look into the extent of child abuse to the same level as it was on the Catholic Church to the Protestant Church should be taking place. Those were the things that I wanted to say about that. And Katie Britt's always been just right there with the Chamber of Commerce, and they've been right there with her, and she's just been hand in hand with them explaining that whole thing right there.
Yeah, I mean, she was president or chief of staff or something for the Business Council of Alabama, the council of bosses in the state. So yeah, not super surprising. Appreciate the call, Dwayne.
So that, take care, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to say what Dwayne was mentioning, it definitely crossed my mind. If there are no regulations in terms of homeschooling, it really does open up children for more abuse, and I think that's really troubling.
Obviously.
So, I could really see where abusive folks would try to take advantage of that system.
And just as a factual matter, if you have a problem with us pointing that out, or with the AEA pointing that out, then you do have teachers' union derangement syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. Or in this case, association derangement syndrome.
Yeah. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number if you want to get where they were. Let's get to last week in Southern labor. In union elections, because the government is shut down, the National Labor Relations Board continues to also be shut down, but workers are still organizing. Workers from 8 St. Louis area Caldi's Coffee locations announced their intent to unionize with Unite Here Local 74, and workers at the House of Blues in downtown Houston, Texas, voted to unionize with IATSE Local 51. They held the vote with a third party since the NLRB is shut down. In grievances, unfair labor practices, and court cases, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, reports that the United Automobile Workers, UAW, Communication Workers of America, CWA, and the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, filed a lawsuit against the Departments of State and Homeland Security for their viewpoint-based surveillance and suppression of protected expression online. The complaint asks a federal court to stop this unconstitutional surveillance program, which has silenced and frightened both citizens and non-citizens and hampered the ability of the unions to associate with their members and potential members. The case is titled UAW versus State Department. The EFF explains that since taking power, the Trump administration has created a mass surveillance program to monitor constitutionally protected speech by non-citizens lawfully present in the United States using AI and other automated technologies. The program surveils the social media accounts of visa holders with the goal of identifying and punishing those who express viewpoints the government does not like. This has been paired with a public intimidation campaign silencing not just non-citizens with immigration status, but also the families, co-workers, and friends with whom their lives are integrated. In strikes and bargaining updates, 3,000 workers at Boeing in St. Louis, Missouri, unionized with the International Association of Machinists, IAM District Lodge 837, are still on strike. The IAM says that Boeing could end the strike by just spending $8 million more over the next 4 years. Union leaders told the St. Louis Business Journal the company keeps saying it will not change the economic parameters of its offer. That's not strength and that's not bargaining, that's stubbornness, and it's a strategy that's failing fast. Following a supermajority of Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee, voting to authorize a strike, those workers unionized with the UAW Local 42, the National Right to Work Foundation sent notices to Volkswagen workers encouraging them to resign their union membership and scab in the event of a strike. Following its victory after striking Hilton in Houston, Texas, Unite Here Local 23 won a $20 an hour minimum wage in a new union contract that members ratified at the George R. Brown Convention Center in the same city. Following Nippon's takeover of U.S. Steel, the company is investing $75 million in Alabama, creating 44 new jobs, 40 of which will be union. Paul Steiner, a journey worker in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local 520 in Texas, and a member of the Caucus of Rank and File Electrical Workers, CREW, has a write-up in Labor Notes about how his local opened bargaining for the first time and won huge gains in their most recent contract negotiations, a $6.75 an hour raise, 4 new paid holidays, and more. Firefighters in Austin, Texas, unionized with the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF Local 975, have launched a petition to protect 4-person crews, saying that cutting staff on trucks could jeopardize safety. In political and legislative updates, Democrats walloped the Republicans in the election last week, flipping 3 seats in Mississippi and breaking the Republican supermajority in that state. Among other victories, the AFL-CIO said that this should send a clear message to politicians. Quote, "When candidates stand with workers, they win. For too long, politicians have chased billionaire donors instead of listening to the workers who teach our children and care for our sick, build infrastructure and operate machines, harvest food and stock shelves and keep us safe, and power our essential services." The shutdown, however, continues. Democrats gave Republicans another opportunity to take the noose off their own necks last week by offering to vote in favor of a package that just extends the ACA subsidies by 1 year to give the parties time to negotiate a more permanent arrangement, but Republicans are refusing. With SNAP in danger, a grocery worker has an article in Labor Notes about how this will hurt shoppers and grocery workers alike. A new report has Alabama as one of the hardest hit states by the shutdown, with one of the higher percentages of federal workers. Elon Musk has won his battle for a $1 trillion pay package from Tesla over the next 10 years. To put this in a little perspective, the most cars Tesla has ever sold in 1 year is 1.81 million, which is a third of how many cars GM sells annually. If Tesla were able to increase their production numbers more than 5-fold immediately and was able to sell 100 million cars over that 10-year period, that would be like getting a $10,000 payout per car. And that is if they sell $100 million in the next 10 years, which they probably won't. The UAW's Sean Fain said in a statement that the auto industry should be a pathway to a decent life for the blue-collar worker. But now Elon Musk, who doesn't build the product, wants $1 trillion while auto workers fall behind. That's everything that's wrong with this industry and this country. New York University's Wagner Labor Initiative has a new roundup of state and local labor initiatives. It's good reading and good inspiration. You can check it out on their website. Inside Climate News has a new report on how Alabama Power customers have the highest utility bills in the country and how the company has captured the government entity that is supposed to be regulating them. The USMCA open comment period ended last week. The trade deal between Mexico, the U.S., and Canada is up for renegotiation in 2026. The UAW said in a statement, with 5 million manufacturing jobs lost since NAFTA, with 90,000 plant closures causing devastation for the working class, with wages and standards falling across borders, and with the USMCA failing to stop the bleeding started by NAFTA, we have to tear up this deal and start over. In internal union affairs, the Texas AFL-CIO is hosting a virtual town hall with members for a live conversation on where we've been and where we're going as we grow the Texas labor movement. You can RSVP on their Facebook page. The National Lacrosse Players Association joined the AFL-CIO, making it the Labor Federation's 64th affiliate. And the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, SMART, is making available naloxone overdose treatments to all its local unions. If we missed your union updates, you can let us know at tvlr.fm/contact. That is tvlr.fm/contact, and we'll try to include it in the next roundup. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We're going to be back to take a look at this new report on prison labor in Hyundai's supply chain. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host, Adam Keller, is in studio with us. We're taking a look at this report right now. The impact of incarcerated labor in Hyundai's U.S. supply chain. This was put out by the Columbia Labor Lab. And so what they did is they partnered with Jobs to Move America to survey workers at Hyundai and in Hyundai's supply chain. So some of those parts manufacturers, people who work for the temp agencies, et cetera, and they did a survey about, working conditions, how many incarcerated workers are in the workplaces where you're at, et cetera, and the researchers found just stunning things in Hyundai's supply chain. So I'm going to read you the key findings from this report. Based on a survey of Alabama auto plant workers and related sources, we study the incidence of incarcerated labor in Hyundai's U.S. supply chain. In the survey, those working in the Hyundai supply chain in Alabama report earning 10 to 15% less than other auto supply chain workers in the state, even accounting for education, race, gender, and age. And so I want to make sure that folks... I want to underline this because this is not saying workers in Hyundai's Alabama supply chain earn 10 to 15% less than auto workers nationally. This is 10 to 15% less than other auto supply chain workers in the state. Mm-hmm. And auto supply chain workers in the state of Alabama make significantly less than auto workers do nationally. And so the fact that Hyundai workers are even still further behind than the average Alabama auto worker is appalling. Here's another key finding. Workers in Hyundai's supply chain also report more safety hazards and more frequent negative experiences such as wage theft, forced overtime, harassment, and lack of breaks compared to other supply chain workers in Alabama. And again, Alabama auto workers have it worse than auto workers do nationally. 2015 report indicated that auto workers in Alabama are twice as likely to face amputation on the job, to have an amputation on the job than auto workers in Michigan. Twice as likely to lose a finger or a limb. I mean, that is huge. And so then again, Hyundai supply chain workers are even more likely to face unsafe working conditions. In the Montgomery area, where Hyundai suppliers are concentrated, auto supplier wages are 7 to 9% lower than expected compared to similar jobs elsewhere in Alabama and nearby states. One contributor to these disparities appears to be Hyundai's use of prison labor. Multiple Hyundai-linked suppliers employ workers from Alabama's prison work release program, with prison labor especially concentrated located in auto parts manufacturing in Montgomery. We find that a 10% increase in the share of incarcerated workers in a plant is associated with a 10 to 14% drop in wages for free workers. We find evidence that this is explained by the fact that incarcerated workers are far less likely to quit over low pay due to coercive prison conditions, which gives employers leverage to lower wages and working conditions for all their employees. So this is just really, really appalling findings, and I appreciate the Columbia Labor Lab looking into this stuff. The Alabama Political Reporter did an article on it, and Hyundai obviously not happy about this. Chance Phillips, writing in the Alabama Political Reporter, quotes from the press conference where a worker talks about being hurt on the job, snapping a bone, and being bandaged up and told to keep working. This worker, Mark Miller, recounted his time participating in a work release program, describing a general lack of safety precautions, insufficient training, and the constant fear of being sent back to prison. I mean, snapping a bone and being wrapped up and being like, all right, back on the line. That's nuts. That's totally nuts. And so Hyundai sent a statement to the Alabama Political Reporter saying, Hyundai is aware that some suppliers participated in the state of Alabama's inmate work release program. However, Hyundai was not involved in any supplier's decision to participate in such programs. Consistent with the standards and values to which we hold ourselves as a company, we mandate that our suppliers and business partners strictly adhere to the law, and we have an established track record of taking action when alleged violations occur. That would be fascinating to see what they're pointing to on their track record. Taking action when violations occur. The spokesperson also pointed to a section of the company's supplier code of conduct that states in part that suppliers should ensure they do not produce for Hyundai Motor Company in whole or in part goods produced by forced labor. And this is how so many of these companies are able to get away with either egregious violations of the law or just unethical business practices, right? And so, because, technically this would be, this is actually technically a violation of the law. Chance Phillips points out that under state regulations, people in work release programs are required to receive, quote, compensation equal to that or of comparable workers and no less than the federal minimum wage. And so, technically this is illegal action from Hyundai suppliers. But, of course, is the Attorney General Steve Marshall going to prosecute Hyundai for violating the law? Obviously not. He's bought and paid for by these folks, right? And so, but this is one of the ways that these companies and these international multi-billion-dollar corporations skirt the law and skirt expectations is by having this spider web of entities that they're connected to that quote unquote, do the dirty work for them, right? Hyundai does not produce all of its parts. There are a lot of parts that are manufactured for Hyundai vehicles that are not produced by Hyundai, quote unquote, right? So they have these relationships with these suppliers, almost like Amazon does with its delivery service providers, so that Hyundai can incentivize these suppliers to skirt the law, to exploit their workers, to pay low working conditions, to exploit prison labor, child labor, undocumented immigrant child labor, and they can reap all of the benefits from all of these ethical violations, legal violations, etc., etc. And then when it finally comes out that these violations have taken place, Hyundai can say, as they did in this statement to the Alabama Political Reporter, it's just our suppliers. We had no idea. We're totally in the dark about everything that our suppliers do. It's total BS, right? I know it, you know it, they know it, everybody knows it. It's total BS. That's why the system is set up in the way that it is. But we're all just kind of supposed to pretend that we don't see what's in front of our eyes. They quote a little bit more from the Columbia economics professor, one of them who did the report. Even when you just look at free world workers, the non-incarcerated workers, we find that plants that are using a higher share of incarcerated workers have worse wages, worse working conditions. The survey specifically found very significant results that incarcerated workers were less likely to quit in response to a hypothetical wage cut, but we also found that free workers find it hard to quit. And so, the idea that this isn't happening, right? The idea that that they're not using incarcerated workers to drive down wages for everybody is, kind of beggars belief. And there are obvious things that we could do in response to this to make things better. Just like there are obvious things that we could do in response to the scandal that came out a few years ago where undocumented children were found to be in Hyundai's supply chain, alleged by the Alabama Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Labor. There are lots of things that we could do in response to that. And some people want to use those stories to scapegoat immigrants and to say that we need to deport a bunch of people. But if what we're actually worried about is worker exploitation, workers not making enough money, then we can just raise the minimum wage. And if we don't want to raise the minimum wage for everybody, we could raise the minimum wage for companies like Hyundai that get tens of millions, hundreds of millions of state incentives. We could connect those state incentives to higher wages for working people. And then, everything's taken care of. We don't have to do this whole Rube Goldberg machine of if we do this huge deportation program and get rid of a bunch of undocumented workers and harass a bunch of undocumented children, then, the market pressures are going to increase and native-born workers might get a little bit more money. We could just make a law about it. You could just say, if you want to get hundreds of millions of dollars from the state of Alabama, guess what? You have to pay your workers $20 an hour. And then bada bing, bada boom, everybody makes more money, except for the billionaires at the top, right? If you're going to get hundreds of millions of dollars from the state of Tennessee, you have to have safe working conditions. You have to respect your workers' right to organize on the job. You can't be union busting. Very, very simple solutions, and we don't have to do this whole Rube Goldberg machine sort of thing. If we're actually concerned about raising wages and improving working conditions for working class Alabamians, working class Tennesseans, and we're not concerned about like brown people moving next door.
One of the things I wanted to point out is like one of the reasons why the incarcerated workers are often eager to participate in this system, however exploitative it is the extreme violence and despair inside the general prison population, right?
Yes.
We've talked about that extensively on this show. Alabama's prison system is unconstitutional, according to our own federal government, due to the cruel and unusual punishment that is experienced every single day in the prison system here in this state. And so it's understandable that folks would see, this is a better opportunity than being stuck there. But, that really begs the question of like how free is the labor that's being used here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're getting this job just so that you can get some respite from Alabama's prisons where literally hundreds of people die every single year. Exactly. How free is that labor? There's a big question there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we could do much better. As you said, there's a lot of tax dollars that are going to support this economic development, to support companies like this. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect some strings attached to it. But, we've heard loud and clear from a lot of politicians in Montgomery that they don't want to do anything to interfere with private business.
Right. Adam, you've been out the last couple of weeks doing a bunch of union stuff. What have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Well, the last couple of weeks, I've been working to try to bring people together. I've been trying to bring labor leaders and community allies together, and that's something that really doesn't happen enough in Alabama. Folks from all corners of the movement, public and private sector, blue collar, white collar, friends from community organizations who share our fight. And, the idea was to try to have some honest conversations about where the Alabama labor movement really stands and, some of our strengths and weaknesses and what it's going to take to turn this collection of institutions back into a stronger movement that can really win change. Partnered with Institute for Policy Studies on a convening a couple weeks ago at the tail end of the Alabama AFL-CIO State Federation convention, and then partnered with Labor Notes this past Saturday on the Alabama Fight Back School in Tuscaloosa. All told, gathered about 50 leaders and activists together from, I think, 30 plus organizations from around the state. So I feel really good about the fact that we were able to have some conversations with some really good people from, really diverse backgrounds. And, we have to have people coming together and having conversations about how we meet the moment. We also have to be honest that here in Alabama, we're not starting from the same place as heavily unionized states. We are really trying to build from the ground up, and that's really a challenge. It's an opportunity as well. But, so my day job is with Alabama Arise. It's a statewide nonprofit coalition, fights for better policy for the people, especially those marginalized by poverty. My job is Worker Power Campaign Director. So I'm trying to really build bridges between that policy work and our membership in the community alongside the labor movement to support working people who are organizing for better, whether that's at the shop floor up to the State House. So building out coordination and trying to stand up movement infrastructure is obviously something that really interests me in terms of building worker power in this state. Why does this matter? Listen to what we've been talking about today. Workers need more power in Alabama. Our state's leaders love to talk about how great we are for business, but we don't talk enough about the workers who face some of the worst conditions in the entire developed world. Oxfam recently released a list of best states to work in, and they ranked Alabama number 50. Now, that ain't right. I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of Alabama being at the bottom of everything good and at the top of everything bad. I think it could be better. I think it must be better. And I really do believe a better Alabama is possible, but only if we come together and fight for it. If we're going to enact our vision of a better Alabama for all of us, we're going to need a lot of people power. And when we look back at the history of our state and the history of our country, we see that it's always taken people power to win positive changes. So if we're going to win the kind of state we deserve, if we're going to win a future we can truly believe in, we need a mass movement of everyday people uniting the working class majority, defeating bigotry through solidarity, and taking on the big money interests that have so dominated our state. A mass movement rooted in love and justice that can fight back against the forces of greed, poisoning everything from our politics to our planet. I wish I could say that there was, a quick fix or a particular policy solution or just a modest tweak we could make to address the dire situation we're in, with multiple layers of crisis bearing down upon us. But the truth is, building worker power in Alabama is a complicated, difficult, long-term project. But never has this work been more important or more urgent. Now more than ever, we need a stronger labor movement that can help defend our families, our freedoms, and our security. In this moment in history, poor and working people and people of goodwill everywhere are called to work together across our differences to bring more and more of us together around our common interest, because when we do that, we can do amazing things. I believe that we can transform this state. We can organize, and we can win living wages and paid leave and a voice on the job and better health care and a dignified retirement and safer workplaces and safer communities. We can organize and we can expand public services for the public good. We can fix our broken criminal justice system. We can finally uplift the least of these. We can do all that and more when we build a mass movement big enough, diverse enough, and strong enough to challenge the powers that be and shake up the Southern status quo. So that's what these events were all about. It's what this project is all about. It's what the Worker Power campaign I'm working on is all about. It's about building that people power we need, and we need all hands on deck. With your help, we can really try to revitalize the labor movement in this state and grow the people power it's going to take to win a better Alabama. And a better Alabama is not only possible, it's necessary. It's going to take all of us doing our part. So, by gathering people together, by having these events, we are really trying to gather the ingredients and refine the recipe. And with more and more of us involved, we can really start cooking. We can really start building out a true movement. Because when we look at Alabama, we're behind compared to a lot of other states in terms of our labor movement ecosystem and infrastructure. And those were a couple of takeaways from those events. We need more collaboration. We need more coordination. A lot of our folks are out here fighting in silos and isolated, one shop, one local at a time. And not only are the unions divided amongst themselves, of course, there's a lack of cohesion between the labor movement and other justice-minded movements. And we need to be honest about these things. We need to be honest about where we're at and assess where we're at. And we've got to invest big in leadership and movement building. We have to have more leadership development in this state. We have to be training more people on how to be organizers in this state. We've got to get more and more folks involved in education and leadership development. It's really critical to that. But I feel like we've built some momentum. We've had a lot of engagement over the last few weeks. You and I both went to the State Council of Machinists Convention, got a chance to speak there. We got a chance to engage with the Alabama AFL-CIO State Federation Convention. Had this fight back school with labor notes and this convening with IPS, and between it all, talked to hundreds of leaders and allies across the state. And I think there's a lot of demand to build out a more coherent and stronger worker power movement. And I'm really excited about some of the next steps and really looking forward to just building out a network of people who want things to get better and who recognize that we have to connect workplace organizing with community organizing and build out the kind of coalitions that are be big enough and strong enough and powerful enough to take on the big money interest.
What do you feel like was your biggest takeaway from, like you said, you've been at conventions and convenings that other people had organized, and you've been to ones that you've organized. You've been to convenings focused on engaging leaders, and then convenings focused on engaging rank and file workers across the state. What do you feel like your biggest takeaway is, and like next steps are? Was there? Was there a sort of broad agreement in all of those rooms, or were there different thoughts about what needs to happen next?
Right. I think one of the things that was interesting to me is that both among rank and file activist types and more, leaders, there is a real sense that internally we have a lot of work to do. We talked about a lot of issues: privatization, union busting, the right-wing domination of politics and the hostile politicians we're facing and the crappy policies coming out of the legislature. All those things came up. But the one thing that I think surfaced the most, and I think really was most widely felt and deeply resonated, was the need for internal base building and building out our own structures as a movement. Because right now, we just don't have that, not sufficiently to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So I felt like there was a lot of momentum to continue these conversations and to continue connecting people across unions and across industries and geographies, and really build out a network of people who can support each other and lift each other up, because there's a lot of organizing happening across the state in various forms and fashions. We all need to be connected and lifting each other up, while continually bringing in more and more new people into the movement. Something we looked at, Labor Notes has this famous graphic of a bullseye, right? And in the middle of the bullseye is your core. You go out one ring and you've got your activist layer. You go out another ring, you've got your supporters, and then you've got your disengaged, and then you've got your hostile, of course, on the outside. Well, what we've really recognized is that in Alabama, our core in the center is too small and too disorganized as it is. So we've got to organize that core and build up that base, and that will allow us to take on the kind of campaigns and the kind of issues that we really need to take on to make progress.
844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. If you have any thoughts on that, we'd love to hear them. We'll take calls on the other side of this break. We're about to go into the second half of our program, which will be off the radio. So if you want to continue listening to this half of the second half of the program live, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube, contribute in the chat, stuff like that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Do want to get to Union Busters. This segment of it's a segment of Boss Watch that we do every week. It's sponsored by Labor Lab. Labor Lab is an employer watchdog organization committed to safeguarding the right to organize through unions, collective bargaining, and mutual aid. They do this by combing through reports that union busters are required to file with the Department of Labor. Here are last week's filings. Amazon in Washington State hired Viking Labor Solutions for $275 an hour, and Performance Food Group in Virginia hired LRI Consulting Services for $425 an hour. It's really important due to a lack of enforcement. A lot of these labor relations consultants are going to disregard the law and not report their persuader activity on time. So it's really crucial for organizers and workers to report that suspected persuader activity to the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards. So you can do that by calling the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards, sending them an email, or calling them. And if you need help with that, you can contact Labor Lab at contact@laborlab.us. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Find us online, Facebook, YouTube. We're going to continue the program. We're going to talk about how GTA has delayed the release of GTA 6 another time, potentially due to union busting. We're also going to be talking about new state and local labor initiatives with Terri Gerstein of the New York University Wagner Labor Initiative. We will be talking to a member of the Minneapolis Federation of Educators about a teacher strike that will be happening next week. And we will be talking about how Rand Paul wants to steal money from old people. Cutting Social Security and stuff like that, just generally spreading lies and wickedness about the program, trying to misinform his constituents. So find the second half of our program, Facebook and YouTube, The Valley Labor Report. If you don't follow us online, then we really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, that phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can leave us a donation at tvlr.fm/donate. You can buy our merch at tvlr.fm/store. We do have some really cool merch. We've got a t-shirt that says Unionize on it, but it looks like the Supreme logo. If y'all have seen that Supreme logo that the kids wear a lot. It's a really cool t-shirt. So tvlr.fm/store, you can get that and our hat and stickers at tvlr.fm/store. And folks, if you appreciate the program, then really do think about getting your local or international union to sponsor the program. A lot of our sponsors re-up on an annual basis, and so we're coming up on the end of the year, and so we could really, and so I always get nervous about whether everybody's going to stay on or not. So definitely check out, send us a note, tvlr.fm/contact, if your local is interested in sponsoring the program. We would appreciate it. We'll see you next week. All right, folks, that is it for the first half of the program. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Overtime.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host here is Adam Keller. We appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 844-899-8857. That is 844-899-TVLR. So, Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed again because of union busting. That is what some people are saying on Reddit after two stories came out back to back. One saying Grand Theft Auto fires some 40 employees, they allege, because of union busting. The company says the employees were leaking information. And then literally the next day or the next week, this article was published in Bloomberg. Grand Theft Auto 6 is postponed again to November 2026. The original release date, you will recall if you've been following the story, was fall of 2025. So the original release date for Grand Theft Auto 6 was supposed to be around this time. Then they postponed it to fall of 2025. Fall of 2025, which is the season that we are in right now. So Grand Theft Auto 6 was supposed to have been released at this point. Then they pushed it to May of 2026. And now they're pushing it to November of 2026. So now a full year until Rockstar is saying that they will be able to release GTA 6. And that's if no more delays happen. And so let's take a look at this Bloomberg article on the firings. The article was written by, Jesse Schreier. And so he just talks about how these 40 workers in Britain were fired. The employees, a Rockstar spokesperson said that their employees had been sharing company information on a forum that included non-employees. However, the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain, the first to organize video game workers in the UK, told Bloomberg that the employees had all been involved with union efforts at Rockstar, calling the firings one of the most blatant and ruthless acts of union busting in the history of the games industry. All of the affected employees were part of a private trade union chat on Discord, and the only outside users in the chat were labor organizers, the union said. Alex Marshall, president of the union, said in response to Rockstar's allegations that the game maker was afraid of hardworking staff privately discussing exercising their rights for a fairer workplace and a collective voice. Management are showing they don't care about delays to GTA 6 and that they are prioritizing union busting by targeting the very people who make the game. And that seems pretty bad. And so it was about a few days after that article came out where, and look, this idea that the information was leaked to, and they're specifically mentioning they say in a public forum. Are they calling this Discord chat group a public forum? You're going to have to be able to talk about your work with union organizers to be able to strategize about how to exercise your rights to collective bargaining, right? And so, I am very, very skeptical, obviously, of the company's claims that there's like trade secrets being shared with trade union organizers, or that would matter. And, in the United States, I don't know about Britain's labor law, but in the United States, you have pretty broad leeway to discuss working conditions if it is in support of, collective bargaining and stuff like that. So Grand Theft Auto was slated for release on May 26th, 2026, until a couple of days after that story broke. Grand Theft Auto 6 is postponed again now to November of 2026. So this Bloomberg article says that the company delayed the release of Grand Theft Auto again, pushing back the much-anticipated video game by 6 months to November 2026. And so that seems bad. Seems bad. For the second quarter ending on September 30th, Take-Two, the game company, reported bookings of $1.96 billion, beating estimates of $1.7 billion. Adjusted earnings came to $1.46 a share, above estimates of 94 cents. So, seems like they're making enough money, and seems like they are interested in union busting over getting the game to the players. Seems bad. I
know. Also, I don't know if you saw, but there was some comments. If you went down the rabbit hole on Reddit, there was a quote from one of the workers that seemed to be verified, and so that was interesting. They went into some detail about like how this actually went down. From my recollection, they were basically invited to a quick chat with HR. And when you know it, they show up and are told they're being fired and are given a letter. Those who were not at work that day, including folks who were on parental leave and other forms of leave, were called from home and they were told they were fired, would be receiving the letter. One of them even had a panic attack on the phone, one of the employees, and HR just kind of hung up on them. Anytime HR asks you for a quick chat, it could be trouble. That's something that we, of course, know in the union world. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of translation of Weingarten rights they have in the UK, but I would imagine they have a right to representation. My understanding is the employees did ask for representation, and at least some of the fired employees asked for union representation in these meetings. So, by far not an expert on British labor law. But yeah, seems bad. Seems like this is a really scummy company. I'm glad to see more organizing taking root in the video game industry, because the video game industry has been notorious for years for crunch, right? Like crunch time and, these deadlines being imposed upon the developers and the other workers involved in these games, and working just crazy, ridiculous hours, having to, live at the office for stretches of time, and just really, really deplorable working conditions in terms of their voice and ability to speak freely on the job. So solidarity with these workers, and I know over here in the United States and Canada, we've seen organizing by CWA and IATSE, both, which is pretty cool since I'm a member of both. I'm glad to see both of my unions organizing in the video game world. All workers deserve a union. All workers deserve a voice. And that's certainly true for these workers who are making a very, very profitable franchise for this company.
Yes. We got a caller on the line. That caller is from a 714 area code. Let's bring them on the air. 714 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Buenos días. Buenos días. Buenas tardes, comrades. Buenos días, buenas tardes, comrades. Jose Francisco Negrete, out here in Orange County, Teamster 952, Teamster Mobilized. Labor for Palestine. Just wanted to remind all the comrades out there throughout this, country that we should be boycotting Home Depot. Whether in Chicago we've seen, and especially out here in Southern California, Home Depot is complicit. letting ICE run around their parking lots and inside their stores chasing, jornaneros, what we call them, day laborers out here, or anybody they have reasonable suspicion to be an undocumented worker. That's the way. I think the Supreme Court.
Yeah, quote unquote reasonable suspicion, right? Which just means looking brown.
Basically. So, we're still boycott Home Depot to all the comrades in Washington, especially in Illinois out there. It's time for us to exchange notes, time for us to come together, because what's happening out here in Southern California, we've seen it. It's happening out there in Illinois, and I don't know if it's happened out there in Washington and DMV area, but with Zohar Hamdani's win, it's going to come to New York, and congratulations to him, running on a working class message, working on a pro-Palestinian stance. Does not scare off the voters. The word socialism doesn't scare off the voters, because we just want the redistribution of the wealth. There's no way that capitalism can go unchecked, because then capitalism would just eat itself. And you're seeing that right now with SNAP benefits being cut. And also want to send my condolences to all those affected at the Louisville, what happened at Louisville this past week. Now I've seen 13 people have passed away. If you know anything about UPS, UPS likes to put a Band-Aid when they need the surgery. So, but my heart goes out to all those that have been affected, and to all the Teamster mobilized comrades out there at the TDU convention. I'm glad we did a picket line yesterday for Sean O'Brien that spoke yesterday at the TDU convention. And Adam was talking about how labor cannot be can be isolated, can't isolate itself from these other causes that affects the labor movement. And you're absolutely correct. It's time for all of us, and it's time for labor especially, and I'm not talking about the leadership, the rank and file, to understand that we're all in this struggle together, and we all need to come together. Whether if it's somebody working in a plant or somebody working in a department store, or a Starbucks. It's time for us to show up for one another, because we have 3 more years of this administration. This administration is going to go hard. And if you heard Steve Bannon this past week talking about going maximum, I take that man for his word. So it's time for all of us to come together. And I want to send keep on doing the good work, keep on spreading the working class message, class struggle message out there. Gentlemen, you comrades, you guys are doing an excellent job, and I'll take any comments off there. Thank you.
Well, really quick, Jose, I have one question for you before you go. We'll need an answer quick. We got our guest in the Zoom, so I want to get to her. And our guest will be speaking to, some things that we can do, I think, in the interim as, Trump has the White House. There are still some things that we can do to not just kind of defend what little the labor movement still has, but how we can make progress at the state and local level. So really excited for the next guest. But I do have a question for you. Please make the answer quick. Do you think TDU is going to endorse Sean O'Brien this weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
I know there's going to be some debate in there, but I'm almost positive they're going to endorse Sean O'Brien. For all the teamsters out there, there's an opposition slate that we need to get signatures for, the Fearless slate. Reach out to the Fearless slate so we could get signatures to have them accredited to be on the ballot, because no labor leadership should go unopposed when it's time for election time. So, in that note, yes, they will endorse, and it'll be interesting this coming year.
Appreciate the call, Jose. Thank you. If you want to get where he was, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. And with that, we have on our guest, Terri Gerstein, director of the Wagner Labor Initiative at New York University. Really excited about talking to you about this new report. Terri, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for the conversation.
So can you give people just kind of an overview of what the Wagner Labor Initiative at NYU was seeking to do with this report?
So the Wagner Labor Initiative at NYU tries to help state and local governments in particular build their capacity to advance and protect workers' rights in a whole range of ways, through enforcement, through policy. And what I was hoping to do with this report, I feel like this is really a moment where we know that the federal government is not protecting workers. There are policy rollbacks. There's shrinkage of the federal government. And yet there's so much that state and local governments can do to protect workers and to stand up for workers. And so really, I think it's a moment for state and local government to be bold, to take action, and to pass laws, to implement things in ways, to really keep workers at the center of like all of the government activities. And so what I was hoping to do with this report, it's really a compendium of a number of laws that have passed, mostly at the state level, a few are local, in the past several years, that have actually passed in some jurisdictions. So they're not like pie in the sky, unrealistic. A lot of times state legislators or local legislators want to know, has this passed elsewhere? What would language look like? So the goal of this report was just to sort of lay out a whole bunch of positive policy actions that have happened in recent years that help at the state and local level, that really help to make sure that workers are treated with dignity and fairness, and that workers are, at the center of some of the government action.
The title of the report is Issue Brief 2025 State Workers' Rights Roundup, Policy Opportunities from Recent Legislative Sessions. We've put a link to it in the chat on YouTube and Facebook if folks would like to see it, and we'll include a link to it in our weekly newsletter as well. Can you tell us what were some of the standout, state and local law developments that you found the most exciting in the report?
Absolutely. And before I go into that, I just want to offer a caveat, which is some of the standout developments I did not go into because they're sort of things that everyone knows about. Raising the minimum wage, passing paid sick leave. And in some more worker hostile jurisdictions, this happened just for public employees, right? Local government or state government passed paid family leave or paid sick leave for their own employees. But
Alabama did that actually last legislative session. They passed paid parental leave for teachers for the first time ever.
Terrific. Just terrific, right? And some places you can, obviously when you're talking about state or local work, there are so many different political landscapes. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. And in the report also, there's a huge amount of leverage from procurement, from state and local government procurement, to infuse it with really high job quality standards, and make sure that government money is being spent on creating really good, solid jobs. And so that is also something that I think is sort of more widely familiar to people, and also a very in-depth topic that this report doesn't cover, but I just want to highlight. But some of the things that are in the report that I was trying to really focus on some things that people might not all be widely familiar with. Some of the ones that I am most excited by, one of them is that a couple of states have passed laws requiring workers' rights education in public high schools. California passed this in 2023. New Jersey just passed it. And this is really exciting to me because I think that, there's so much research showing that people do not know about their rights at work. And this is something, school curricula have become such a, culture war battleground. And this is something that I think we can all agree on, that when people start out their work lives, they should know about their minimum wage and overtime rights. They should know about the right to a safe workplace, about the right to form and join unions. And I don't think that education is something that will, solve all of our problems. But I think the current lack of knowledge about workers' rights is a terrible, terrible starting place that's very disempowering for workers. So that's one that I especially liked. Another one is, a couple of other ones. One is unemployment insurance for striking workers, because they should be able to have some financial support while they're out of work, just like any other workers who are currently not having income. Washington and Oregon just passed this. New York has this as well, and New Jersey. Also, laws that expand the pool of enforcers. We don't have enough resources to enforce our, wage and hour and workplace safety and all of the, misclassification, all of the laws. The agencies to enforce these laws have been absolutely starved for decades. And this gives, a red carpet for corporations just to run roughshod over people's rights. And so there have been some examples in about half a dozen states. They have explicitly made wage theft a felony. And what that does is that expands the pool of enforcers, because that makes these cases more appealing to district attorneys or county attorneys or, criminal prosecutors. I always say, if a worker embezzles from the employer, no one questions whether that's a criminal case, and that gets prosecuted. Right. If the employer does not pay workers and steals their wages, that is much less frequently prosecuted, but that is changing in a number of jurisdictions, and passing laws that make wage theft a felony is a valuable part of that. Some states have also passed laws. California passed a law, and Minnesota, that allow local government to play a bigger role in enforcing not just whatever their local laws are, but enforcing the state's labor laws. So expanding the pool of enforcers, workers' rights education, unemployment insurance for striking workers, and of course, heat standards are another one that I think is so important as temperatures rise, keeping people safe. So those are a few, but there's really so many, and I tried to include a broad range that, might be relevant in a range of different jurisdictions, recognizing again that there's so much variation.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, do you have off the top of your head like how many different policies you were able to include? It's like, is it like 50 almost? I mean, it's a lot.
I think I didn't number them like that, but I think it's certainly in that ballpark. Yes, it's certainly in that ballpark. And again, not including raising the minimum wage, passing paid sick leave in various forms. And there are some that are, squarely targeting collective bargaining and expanding collective bargaining, like expanding collective bargaining to workers who are not covered by the National Labor Relations Act, like farm workers or public sector workers. And then New York and California both passed, what some people are talking about as trigger ordinances that sort of say, okay, the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, is, doesn't have a quorum and is being starved and is not, for a variety of reasons, is not really working to protect workers' right to organize. And so they passed state level laws saying like, okay, the federal government is not really protecting workers' right to organize. If certain actions in California, it's basically like if the NLRB, is not really working for certain specific reasons, then the state labor relations law kicks in and workers would have a right to organize under state law. So those are some innovations that I think, again, that I think is more realistic in like very worker friendly jurisdictions. But I think it's worth noting that, these laws are being seriously discussed in a number of jurisdictions.
I want to talk about a couple of those that have passed in more worker-friendly jurisdictions that I unfortunately don't think we'll be able to get in Alabama, but that are particularly relevant for labor fights that we have had in Alabama, and things that if these laws had been in place, things may have gone a little bit differently. And one of those is the worker freedom of conscience laws. And you talk about in the brief how those laws are generally billed as banning captive audience meetings, but they're actually a lot broader than that. Can you talk about the scope of these freedom of conscience laws and where they've been instituted?
Yes, there's a number of states that have passed these freedom of conscience laws, including New York, where I am based. And basically what they say, everybody always describes them as banning captive audience meetings, but they're really much broader than that. And basically what they say is that workers cannot be retaliated against for not attending a meeting, the sole purpose of which is for the employer to talk about their own political or religious views. And so when you think about it that way, it's much broader, captive audience meetings. It's one form of an employer talking about their political views related to unionizing. But really, when you look at the language of these statutes, they're much broader than that. And I don't have at the top of my head the complete list of jurisdictions that have passed it, but they are all generally worker-friendly jurisdictions. And I should note also that these laws are being litigated. Employers have challenged these laws in several jurisdictions.
Another one is the minor protection laws, and this is particularly relevant. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago there was some big reporting out of Reuters about undocumented migrant children as young as 12 being found to be working in the automotive supply chain in Alabama. And, obviously nothing was done about that by the state. The attorney general of the state never even commented on it. I mean, I followed that pretty closely, and it was shocking that the chief law enforcement officer in the state not talking about the blatant violation of Alabama's child labor law. I mean, that's illegal under Alabama law for 12-year-olds to be working in manufacturing environments, but he doesn't care about that, right? And so in Alabama, they have considered weakening, and they did actually weaken the state's already sort of lax child labor laws. Not as bad as some other states, but in states that are different than Alabama, they're actually increasing protection for children. Can you talk to us about those?
Sure. So a couple of examples of those. One is in Illinois. Illinois had a real overhaul of its child labor laws, including increasing the penalties for violations. And then one change in laws that I think has a lot of promise to deter child labor violations happened in Colorado. And what they passed in Colorado, usually when a person is injured at work, the only thing they can do is they can get workers' compensation if they're injured or killed. They can't typically file a lawsuit for personal injury. And what they passed in Colorado was that if a child is killed on the job in Colorado, that the family, the survivors, I'm not remembering right now whether it also includes severe injuries, but certainly when children are killed on the job in Colorado, if the child labor laws are being violated at the time that the child is killed on the job, that the family is not limited to workers' compensation and can file a personal injury lawsuit. And so I think that has real power for deterrence, because if you're an employer, that really changes the calculus of your potential, exposure, financial exposure, if there's a violation. If all that happens is workers' comp, your workers' comp premium can go up a little bit, but that's not catastrophic. But if you're facing a personal injury lawsuit for a child who is killed on the job, that could be financially really catastrophic. So I think that has real potential to deter violations.
In your brief, you do say that when minors are employed in violation of child labor laws and injured or killed, so it seems like injury or death would qualify somebody for that expanded liability for the employer. And so, we talked at the beginning about kind of the message of the report, and the message of the report is that there are things that workers and allies can be doing on the state and local level to advance workers' rights, even under a Trump administration. And that's always been the case. And, I feel like this isn't the first kind of state and local labor policy roundup that I've seen from you and from the Wagner Labor Initiative. And so those are always great. And that's, frankly, it's important even under Democratic administration, is to make gains where you can, when you can, at all of the levels that you can, because someday it might become a little bit harder. But for workers and allies in states like Alabama, where we have pretty broad preemption, there was when there was a big fight to raise the minimum wage nationally to $10.10 an hour, Birmingham actually raised its minimum wage, and at that point, the state legislature passed a preemption law that I think it was pretty. I'm not sure if it was as broad as Texas's, but every time I mention something at the local level, somebody says, "Oh, well, that's preempted. That's preempted. We can't do that." And so, for folks like myself, what are opportunities that remain open even with preemption on the local level for municipalities to intervene in a positive way?
So that's a really good question. I want to just, before I answer that specific question, I want to note that there still is possibility for positive change at the state level, even in hostile environments. For example, there have been bans on non-competes. That is an area where there have been, very traditionally, not so supportive of workers states that have passed bans on non-competes in the past several years. That is an issue that seems to cross party lines. And then also in some places, as I noted in the report, in some places there have been ballot initiatives that has been a really good tool for passing, voters really support raising the minimum wage and really support raising, paid sick leave, for example. In Alaska, they also got the ban on, the freedom of conscience law through a ballot initiative. And so that's another method of, the legislators can try to roll it back, but that's another method of trying to achieve change, even in states that are not so friendly. But as you mentioned, there's an awful lot that localities can do, even where there's preemption. One initial point I would make is to not assume that there's preemption of everything, until you actually look into that specific policy. For example, heat standards. In some places, Texas has the Death Star bill where everything is preempted unless the legislature specifically allows cities to do it. But other states aren't necessarily like that. And so with a heat standard, for example, that might not yet be preempted. And if a locality passed a heat standard right at the end of a legislative session, with a relatively quick effective date, right? Employers could get used to the measures involved in having a heat standard. It's really pretty simple. It's, rest, shade, drinking water, having a plan in advance, training people. It's really not rocket science. And so if employers get used to this, then, they might realize that this is actually feasible. And then by the time the next legislative session comes around, there might be less opposition to, less motivation for preempting it. So that's one point. But other points are that local government has a lot of power. The power to legislate is only one slice of the pie of the power that local government has. They have the power, for example, procurement, to say we are not going to procure from any businesses. We're not going to enter contracts with any businesses that have a history of unremedied wage theft violations. And so Austin and Columbus and Cleveland have laws like this. For example, Austin has a wage theft coordinator who makes sure that Austin does not contract with known bad actors. Local governments can also publish information about violators within their jurisdiction. The New York City Comptroller created this amazing dashboard that shows all of the violations under the federal wage and hour law, anti-discrimination laws, safety and health, unionization, all the violations by employers within New York City. And so that's really useful for organizers to know, for job seekers to know what kind of employer they're applying to, for procurement officers to know who the government's doing business with. Another really big piece of leverage that I'm very excited about, that's sort of I think state and local government really is a great place for experimentation. And there is using licensing and permitting as a lever for improving labor compliance. So in California, there are two counties, Santa Clara and San Diego, that have basically said, if you restaurant have you have wages that the state says that you owe, and you have not paid them back, and you still owe that money, we're going to reach out to you. We're going to send you a couple of increasingly angry letters. And if you don't pay, we're going to suspend your license and you can't do business. They've had a really good success rate of getting the money paid back that way. And I think the more that word gets out in that community, it can, in the regulated, industry, it can help deter violations. Boston has a really cool ordinance related to the construction industry where basically in order to get a building permit in the first place for projects above a certain size, before you can even cross go, right? Contractors have to submit a site-specific workplace safety affidavit outlining all of the hazards and how they're going to address it, making sure that all the workers are trained, and have the appropriate OSHA training and several other measures as well. And then that site-specific workplace safety affidavit is incorporated into the building permit. And if they're not complying with it in the course of building, when the building inspectors go there, there can be consequences for the permitting. So I feel like local governments have a lot of power they issue licenses in a lot of different counties and cities, issue licenses in a lot of different industries. Restaurants and construction are industries with high rates of wage theft, construction with high rates of workplace safety issues. So there's a lot of leverage there that local government has. And then there's also just like public leadership, educating people about their rights. Again, workers' rights education in the public schools, putting information on how to form and join unions on the local government's website. Just really educating people about their rights. So those are a few of the things, a few of the measures that local government can do. We actually wrote, along with Local Progress, a whole report that's basically on that topic, how local government can protect workers' rights when states don't want them to. And we have, these ideas that I've mentioned, as well as a whole host of others, because there really is a lot that local government can do if you sort of just step back and analyze all of the powers of government to support workers. What's different here, though, is that this has not historically been a role of cities and counties, right? Municipal government, like clears the snow and does the garbage and education and all of the libraries, but like protecting workers hasn't been part of its function. But increasingly, I think for a whole variety of reasons, that is changing. And some of that is because advocates are realizing that there's so much opportunity and potential for movement and positive things happening at the local level. And then I think also right now, in particular with this current administration, we really need every other, economic distress is a big part of why we are where we are right now. And I think that, local government can really play a big part. All parts of government need to, step in where the federal government is not doing its job.
I appreciate all your work on this. I really do. And I know the local progress report that you are talking about. We printed off, our labor council printed off 10 copies of it, union printed, and delivered it to all of the city councilors. And I think, did we give one to the mayor? I'm not sure, but we delivered it to all the city councilors, including one of our city councilors in Huntsville is a union member. So I will also be sending her this policy brief and our interview, and so hopefully she'll get some ideas from that. So, and I always appreciate your interviews on America's Workforce. Big fans of Ed over here. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hope that was helpful for folks. Really looking forward to sending this interview and that policy brief. Again, the title of the policy brief is, let's scroll up to the top, Issue Brief, 2025 State Workers' Rights Roundup, Policy Opportunities from Recent Legislative Sessions. So you should also send that to your city councilor.
And your state legislators.
Yep.
Right, because it covers both state and local policies. So there's opportunities in both areas for sure.
Yep. We're going to be talking soon to a Minneapolis Federation of Educators member. Excited for that conversation. They're going to be going on strike next week, I believe. So looking forward to that. Let me know when she is in the Zoom. But I will... let's just take a look at the chat now, because I don't think we don't have enough time before this guest comes on to play this Social Security clip, which is very funny. I'm looking forward to talking to y'all about that. So let's take a look at the chat on YouTube. Union Gus, somebody said something about the UAW supporting blanket tariffs, and Union Gus rightfully points out that TVLR ran an extended clip of Fain a few months back talking about how they are not into Trump's tariffs, but that talking about tariffs as a whole being good or bad was an oversimplification. Indeed. Now, the UAW was, when they talked about Trump's tariffs, they were, to be fair to the other commenter, they were more positive than they were negative about it, but they did not specifically come out in support of, blanket tariffs, and they consistently use the term targeted tariffs. So if you're interested in where the UAW is on the tariff issue, then you can go back and check out our coverage of that. Union Gus also asks if we saw Mamdani's reverse town hall. I did not. He was meeting with unions and asking what they needed from him. That's really cool, though. I like it. Very, very cool. Somebody else, Jose, mentioned this, but another person in the chat mentioned that UPS 2976 flight in Louisville that crashed, 13 people dead now. Really, really sad thing that happened. Free American says a pastor was recently convicted in Morgan County, and I think he received a 20-year sentence. I never remember a local priest being charged. That is wild. Absolutely wild. Let's see. Our Canadian listener talks about the general strike in the works because the teachers were forced back to work last month. Right now, they are focusing on recalling key representatives that forced them back to work. The nurses in Alberta had a strike vote. 98% voted to strike. November 17th is the earliest date that they can go on strike. It's tense. If the government forces them back to work, it could trigger the general strike. Interesting. I'll try to reach out to the Alberta Federation of Labor person this week and maybe see if we can get them on the program. I do believe that we've got our guest on the line now. Our guest is Brenda Johnson. Really looking forward to this conversation. Brenda Johnson is a Stadium View School / Hennepin County Juvenile Detention Center transition specialist. She is in the Education Support Professional chapter of the Minneapolis Federation of Educators, Local 59. She is the second vice president of the Education Support Professionals chapter. She also sits on the Education Minnesota Governing Board, that is the state affiliate, and represents the state of Minnesota at the NEA, the National Education Association, as an NEA director. She is also ordained clergy in the African Methodist Episcopal Church and a mother of two and a grandmother. Brenda, welcome to the program. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to just be here and talk about our fight here in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Well, after that resume, it's an honor to have you on the program. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you're very busy. The big headline thing is that if nothing happens between now and I believe it's the 11th, y'all will be going on strike. So I'm going to put that out there at the top of the interview and then put a pin in it because I want to get to some of the basics before we get to that. Just can you tell the audience what is at issue during these negotiations? What are y'all fighting for?
Absolutely. Thank you. Just a point of clarity for our audience is that some people don't understand the value of an education support professional. So I'm gonna go back and forth from support professionals to teachers, right? So a support professional could hypothetically wear many hats. So for example, we have education support professionals that ride the bus with our students that have some disabilities. We have education support professionals that are dean of students. And we also have transitional support professionals. So for me, for example, I work in a jail, Hennepin County Detention Center, and I provide the support to students that are transitioning either back to their community or back to a secured facility. So I work with community parents and students. And so, and we have special education support professionals. What we're fighting for, we have 3 contracts. So we have the adult basic education, we have teachers, and then we have the education support professionals. 3 contracts under one roof. Basically, across the board, we're fighting for smaller classrooms, okay? We have more than the capacity in a lot of our schools. Living wages, that's across the board, especially for our education support professionals. Pay parity for adult basic ed.
And so if those are the things that y'all are fighting for during these negotiations, they don't sound that radical. They don't sound like they're going to cost an incredible amount of money. And so, how is management responding to those asks? If y'all are going to be going on strike next week.
For some of you, okay, so
Yeah,
some
go
of
ahead.
you may or may not know, you're in Alabama, right? You're in Huntsville, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So when we fight in Minnesota, we win. And so where goes Minneapolis in terms of unionism? There goes the country. So people are watching what we do here in education. One of the things that we have fought for, we've been in bargaining now for 7 months. We've been at the table with our district for 7 months, going on 8 months, and there has been little or no movement. And so now it's time. They're not radical. So our district has said to us many times that we have no money. There's no money. There's no money to give a living wage. There's no money, for adult basic ed. There's no money for teachers to have a wage, a living wage also, because some of our teachers are not there yet. Some of our new teachers are not. So they're saying that there's no money. And now we know that there's money there. There's money in the budget, and there's money that can be moved from the general fund to provide our education support professionals, first of all, with a living wage. We make things happen. If it wasn't for us, school would not happen. We provide the support in classrooms, outside of the classrooms, to teachers, to buildings, principals. So there is money there. So it has been a game. I think it has been a chess game. We'll give you a little bit here, but then we're going to take away here. We're going to give you a little bit here, but we're going to. So it's been back and forth, back and forth. And mind you, I am not on the bargaining team, but I sat in on a couple of the bargainings early on. And so it's been a game of cat and mouse. And I know that we are living in some difficult times right now, and we don't want to see a strike, but our people need to live. Education support professionals are still working 2 and 3 jobs. So in the state of Minnesota, we are still trying to pay our mortgages, our rent, our car payment with one job. And one job should be enough, but it isn't.
And so if, the money is there, things can be moved around, why do you think the district is being so obstinate in refusing to, meet meet your requests in negotiation?
My understanding is that we have had a district that we have lost a lot of students over the year. Now, mind you, I've been in the district for many, many years in Minneapolis Public Schools, and a lot of our kids, for whatever reason, they are going to schools out of the district. We are attempting to make this the destination district. There has not been, my understanding is that they may and will have to close some schools. We don't want that to happen, but if we don't have the students, then why keep the buildings open, right? And we know that there's going to be some cuts that will come. Pay the people what they deserve while they're here working. Pay the teachers, pay the support professionals, pay us what we're worth. We do the work every single day. We love our community. We love our students. We love our parents. Our parents are here fighting with us, alongside of us. Our communities, our labor community people, they're here. They have kids and grandkids that go to Minneapolis Public Schools. And so, yeah.
And so what made you and your coworkers at this time decide to take the step of going on strike?
Not enough movement. The language, some of the language in the contract was not up to what we had proposed. The language, the wage, it was just not up to par. And so we had to say as a team, the Joint Executive Board had to make a decision to, file to strike. So that's where we are now. We are back at the table this morning. Our teachers, our support staff, and our adult basic ed, they're fighting. We are fighting with everything that we know.
So if they're back at the table this morning, I guess it's a little bit too soon to tell if the strike threat is motivating them to try to get something resolved so that y'all don't strike next week. So I guess we don't know the answer to that question. But how has the community responded to to y'all announcing that y'all are going to be going on strike
I would
next
say
week?
our community is big and bold and right there with us. And we can talk about our labor people. We can talk about ASME and SEIU. They're trying to settle their contracts. And at the beginning stages, the middle stages, our parents have showed up and showed out. They're with us. They had a rally. We had a rally yesterday with our parents, and it was huge. They don't want this to happen, but the but is pay our teachers, pay our educators what they deserve, and there won't be a strike. This is a union town. Minneapolis is a union town, and we show them how it's done. We get down in this union town. And so I want to say our parents, our faith community, when we talk about the faith community, they're with us. There has been a lot of movement on the ground. We have organizers. They're called foot soldiers, and it's boots on the ground. They have done the work. We had an informational picketing that happened on Thursday. We had over 1,000 people throughout the cities that joined us on the line. It was amazing. And so people here in Minnesota know about what's going on in Minneapolis and in St. Paul. Our St. Paul sisters and brothers have been with us, standing on the line with us at the rallies. And so we're ready. We don't have to get ready. We're ready for whatever needs to happen.
I have been following a story over the last several years out of Minneapolis about unions having embarked like 10 years ago on a long-term strategic plan to align contracts. And you mentioned some of the other unions that are in contract negotiations right now. Is MFE part of that plan to align contracts so that everybody's contract expires, around the same time to kind of increase everybody's leverage?
And to my knowledge, they're in talks with that happening. How we show up is that if there's an informational picketing, we're there for SEIU. We're there for the nurses. So we're building a movement and a momentum that will happen within the next 2 to 5 years. It's happening now. I would say, and I would boast about this a little bit, it's a matter of some of our leaders inside of our union picking up the telephone and saying, this is going to happen here in Minneapolis at our union hall. Could you be there? And guess what? People show up. We have city council people that are showing up. We have people that, of course, that we have endorsed for our mayor races. They're on the line with us. We've had our attorney general show up. We've had Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, Omar Fati. We've had council people, Robin Wormsley, show up. People are here standing with us in this fight.
We had somebody in the chat who seems like somebody from Missouri that was interested in knowing where the record increase in the education budget a few years ago has been allocated, and why the teachers seem to have to threaten a strike over every contract in Minnesota. It sounds like in Minnesota there was a big education budget, and like it seems like maybe that money could go to paying y'all correctly, so you don't have to strike. Do you have any insight into that?
I'm not too much, but here's what I do know. I know that we have had some of our experts in the area, and I'll brag about Education Minnesota. Some of the experts that do the research and do the work, that have looked in and have digged into our general budget and have found funding. There's a big thing out there that our executives at our district offices are paid lots and lots of money, right? but the money has not trickled down to the students and the families and to the teachers. And so that's where some of the sticking point is. So if you say that you don't have any money, but on the other side, you can increase our executives that are at the district offices, that doesn't make a lot of sense. When we have the boots on the ground, people that are doing the work, and you can't pay them a livable wage. There's something wrong with that.
Well,
so
Brenda,
I do think that, let me just say this, that there is, we believe in Minnesota about good, healthy relationships, right? And so part of our strategy has been that we start at the front end to build relationships with our district office. So it won't be, when we get to the table, us and them. But I'm not sure how much of that relational piece has worked, right? I do a lot of work around, I'm not a social worker, but around the social and emotional piece. And so there's coaching that we do with kids. So if you are being detained, if you're in jail, whatever you're here for, we don't want to get into that, but what we want to get in is that you need to get a high school education so that when you come back, that you can contribute to the larger society. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that my question is, the relationships that we've tried to build over the last 8 months, it should be working right now, and we shouldn't have to go on strike because of the relational piece and the being authentic and not lying and saying one thing and doing another.
Brenda Johnson is a worker at the Hennepin County Juvenile Detention Center, a member of the Minneapolis Federation of Educators, Local 59. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with before we let you go?
If you're in the fight for what is right, we believe in boots on the ground. Don't give up. Fight for what you believe in for our kids and for our community, and for the underdog, the people that are not making a whole bunch of money, but have it in their heart to educate our kids on a national level. Stay in the fight, stay in the struggle. And then we will win. So thank you, Alabama.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
We've got another segment to get to before we wrap up. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We've got this clip from Tim Pool, had Rand Paul on the program. I don't know what all they talked about, but they ended up talking about Social Security. And
can I just say, I'm really glad you stumbled upon this, because y'all would have to crowdfund a lot more money for the TVLR for me to sit through Tim Pool and Rand Paul podcast or show or whatever the hell this is. Just saying. So I appreciate it, Jacob.
That's right. I sacrifice.
Good looking
out. So Rand Paul just just straight up lies to Tim Pool's audience in the service of billionaires to steal money from old people and their Social Security. Let's play clip 1.
What do we do?
Well, with Social Security, you're going to have to start receiving it at a later age, and I've said the age has to go to 70. In the early 1980s, we went from 65 to 67 over about a 20-year period. It's not pleasant news to tell you, but it's the only thing you can do. Now, you could also raise Social Security taxes dramatically. Right now, you pay 15%. You pay 7.5%, and your employer pays 7.5%, but really, you pay 15%. Yeah. If you want to pay 25%, you can keep Social Security the way it is. If you want to pay 25% of your check to Social Security. But most people, when you tell them that, and most politicians say, well, gosh, that'd be devastating on the working guy to have a 25% tax on everybody.
That's just a lie. It is just a straight up lie, because Social Security would be... Bernie Sanders has a bill that would increase Social Security payments by a not insignificant amount. I think almost $1,000 a month or something, like a serious amount, and pay for that and some, and have Social Security be solvent for 75 years. Do you want to know how Bernie Sanders funds that? He doesn't fund it by raising the retirement age, which is just an across-the-board cut. I mean, people like to say raising the retirement age so that they don't have to say an across-the-board cut. But that's all it is, because you can retire at any time that you want, and you can start drawing Social Security, I think, still as early as 62, but if you take it at 62, you get a reduced amount, right? And so the longer that you wait to take it, including up to the full retirement age of 67, you get more annually, right? You get more on an annual basis than if you start taking it sooner. And you can even wait till after you're 67 and get still more. What raising the retirement age does is it just does like a 20% cut or something across all retirement ages, right? And so raising the retirement age is not a real thing. It's just an across-the-board benefits cut. That's what raising the retirement age means. And so Bernie Sanders has a bill significantly increase the amount of Social Security that people get, because people don't get enough Social Security to retire, and a lot of people have not been able to save enough for retirement because we have lost pensions and 401ks are a scam. So Bernie Sanders' bill, solvent for 75 years, significantly raises the amount that you get from Social Security, does not raise the retirement age, does not increase taxes on working people to 25%. I mean, just completely ridiculous. What it does is eliminates the Social Security income cap. Most people don't know this. Most people don't know that this exists because most people don't make enough money to go over the cap. But if you make, I can't even remember what the cap is. Is it $180,000 a year? If you make over some amount of money, $180,000 a year, something like that, then every dollar above that is not taxed for Social Security. So if you make $100 million a year, you are only taxed for Social Security on the first $167,000 or $184,000, whatever the cap is, right?
It was $176,000 for this year. It'll be $184,500 next year.
Okay,
what it looks like.
So there you go, $180,000. After you hit that amount, no more of your money is taxed for Social Security. And so all that Bernie Sanders' bill does is it removes the cap. It says that a billionaire, a multi-hundred millionaire, should have to pay the same percentage into Social Security as a secretary, as a police officer, as a garbage truck worker, right? If you are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, $1 million a year, you should have to pay the same percentage in your income into Social Security. And if you do that one simple trick that the wealthy don't want you to know about, that one simple trick, Social Security solvent for 75 years, and you can significantly increase payouts to Social Security recipients. So he's just lying. And he knows that, right? I mean, Rand Paul has a doctorate. He's a medical doctor. He's a smart guy. He reads a bunch of stuff. He knows that you could do that just by raising taxes on rich people. And not even, raising taxes on rich people almost feels like a deceptive way to say it. It's just imposing the same taxes on rich people that working people already have for Social Security. And so then people say, if you're making $100 million a year, then you don't need Social Security and blah, 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 so you shouldn't have to pay into it. And that is so dumb. Like, yes, if you're making $100 million a year, you probably are not going to need Social Security. But guess what? It's not about you. It's about the people that built the society that allowed you to make $100 million a year. You got to give back. It's not about you. It's just it's so frustrating. So that is not the only options available on the table are not raising the retirement age, cutting benefits across the board. That's what that actually means, or increasing taxes to 25% on working people. That's just an out and out lie. Just an out and out lie. To try to scare Tim Pool's audience, because, unfortunately, Tim Pool's audience is not going to know very many things. And so hopefully, some of them will see this and they'll know a little bit more than they would if they only listened to Tim Pool. And another problem about the Social Security cap is that, wealth inequality in this country, income inequality in this country is greater than it has ever been since the Gilded Age. And so a knock-on effect of that is that, the Social Security cap has been in place basically since the program was founded. But when it was founded and had this cap on it, the Social Security tax captured something like 97% of all income earned in the United States. 90-something percent of all income in the United States was subject to the Social Security income tax, right? Because when it was instituted, and we had the Great Compression in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, income inequality was not as much as it is now. You had fewer people who made radically more than the rest of everybody else. And so basically everybody was subject to the Social Security tax. And so even though you had this this cap where the richest people kind of were not subject to the same tax implications that everybody else was, there were just fewer of those freaks around, right? And so now, as income and wealth inequality has skyrocketed, we have more of these people around that are making above the cap, and now it's only something like 82% of all income in the country is subject to the Social Security income tax, because we have it's not so many people, but we have enough people that are making so much of the national income and have so much of the national wealth that they are not being subject to the tax in the same way that they used to be, right? So really bad. Public service announcement. Rand Paul is a liar, malevolent, wicked, etc. Tim Pool, maybe just a dumb guy. Doesn't know anything. So now you know. Hopefully that'll be helpful for folks.
Yeah, I hope so.
844-899-TVLR if you have thoughts about my rant on Tim Pool. 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a written message at tvlr.fm/contact. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Steve Waronko says Atlanta City Council elected DSA candidate Kelsey Bond took no corporate money and got 64% of the vote. And that was against the wife of a commercial developer. Really cool there.
That's really cool. Really huge.
I was following Kelsey's campaign and was hoping it would win. But yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else, Adam. You got anything else before we wrap?
Yeah, I want to make sure to share a few events that should be on your calendar. I'll start with what Labor Notes has on offer. They actually started their November Secrets of a Successful Organizer series today. So if you're tuning in to the Valley Labor Report live, you've probably missed session 1, but session 2 will be on Saturday, November 22nd. That is one thing that I think everyone can do, is take the Secrets of a Successful Organizer training and spread the word and send that to other folks, get other folks to take this training. It's very helpful. It's relevant, whatever kind of organizing you're doing, whether that's trying to build a union in your workplace or trying to internally organize and like revitalize the union you already have, or if you're doing, community, political, other kind of grassroots organizing, it's very helpful. So go to labornotes.org/events. Some of the other trainings they have coming up on November 11th, they have What to Do When Your Union Breaks Your Heart. We've heard some grief from Teamsters today. And from letter carriers today. It's something we have to deal with. Sometimes these institutions do not always make us happy. Sometimes they do break our heart, and it's good to have a conversation with like-minded folks in the movement. Talk about how to deal with that, how to move forward positively. The answer is not to just quit the union and stop paying dues and give up, obviously. Spoiler alert. On November 20th, they have a stewards workshop dealing with difficult supervisors. And this is a limited capacity workshop. It is primarily just for stewards and elected officers who are working with stewards. So not for staff or just, rank and file activists necessarily. And this is a really important workshop because if you are a steward, if you are a union representative, dealing with difficult supervisors is going to be one of the things on your plate. And it's probably going to take up a lot of time and energy. So this is a very helpful workshop. And finally, starting on December 1st, they will kick off the first workshop of winning a strong contract. And so that will kick off December 1st, and part 2 will be on December 8th. Both are on Monday evenings. And it's a really helpful if you are going into contract negotiations, and this is not just for people who are on the bargaining team, but to think holistically about how you win a strong contract through organizing your membership and your allies in the community. On December 6th, New Orleans has a troublemaker school. It's going to kick off early at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So kicking off early there in New Orleans, December 6th at the IATSE Local 478 Hall. So, definitely encourage folks in the area to check that out. Troublemaker schools are like the day-long mini conferences that Labor Notes puts on. Always covers organizing skills, and you'll hear from real-world examples of taking on the boss and actually winning. So want to lift that up. And then finally, for those of you who are in Alabama, I did want to just lift up that Alabama Rise has an event coming up on the 10th. That will be Monday the 10th, that evening at 6 p.m. It's going to be the Impact on Health and Hunger series. Basically, this is all about the so-called Big Beautiful Bill Act, H.R. 1, alongside the government shutdown, and really give folks information, the most current information possible on the impacts on health and hunger. So if you're trying to find out more about healthcare costs and the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid, if you're trying to figure out what's going on with SNAP and EBT benefits, this is a good webinar to attend. It's going to be Monday night, November 10th at 6 p.m. You can go to alarise.org to find out more and to register. And I believe that is all I have. So I really appreciate everyone tuning in today. Don't forget to leave us a voicemail throughout the week. We really love those and appreciate those. If you heard a segment that you enjoyed this week, when it comes out on YouTube, share that with your network. Send it around. Text it to people. Share it on Facebook or Twitter. Whatever you do. It's really helpful. We don't have like an advertising budget. We spread through word of mouth, and it's really helpful when y'all share that stuff and like and subscribe and do all those little things. It's a free and easy way to support this project if you think we're doing valuable work, and we're trying to spread the word. We're trying to build up a working class movement in the South and beyond, because working people deserve better, and we deserve our own media as well. That's what we're trying to do here, and we can't do it without your support.
That's it for us today, folks. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you next week.